Hello, everybody. My name is Father Fred Capris. I am a Capuchin Franciscan. I work here in Detroit, Michigan, and I am a board member for National Catholic Partnership on Disability, and am also the board liaison for the Council on Mental Illness. And I would like to welcome everybody tonight to this webinar series. We're so glad to have you to participate in this wonderful time together. And we have a great presenter for you today, Sister Hope. Michael and James will be here today to talk to you about their fascinating and wonderful tech-based program that really has helped so many people across the world to be able to understand and get the need and the assistance that they need regarding both behavioral and mental health. And so I guess with no further ado, Michael and James, I'd like to thank you and welcome you both for coming to be with us this evening. And I'm just so excited to hear what you guys have to say.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And thanks everyone for making the time. I know we're in different time zones, and for some people it's later on in the night. I myself am based in California, San Francisco. So for me, it's somewhat earlier on in the day. And for today, kind of how we have it structured is we have the slide deck, but we also have a short video. And I figured this video would just kind of help introduce what we're talking about because it is very modern and innovative technology, and it's always easier to kind of see it in a video of how other people talk about it. So very high level overview. Um, the Really what we see is a shortage of service providers that make it hard for people to get the access they need. And of course, the one of the final stages of access that is not being given to those who need access is when it culminates in someone being at risk of their own lives. And this is really for today what we want to talk about how this technology can really help existing efforts or kickstart new efforts to really, in a preventative way, reach out to people and try to help them as best as possible. And a big part of that is just initial outreach. And the video that I'll be playing right now um, really covers that initial outreach part, and it's actually used by the Catholic Charities of South Carolina. And you'll you'll um, you'll see a part of a chat conversation first, and then different people talking about um, how this is a service that helps people, including a video message from the bishop. And it's a short video. It's just 1 minute and 40 seconds. This is an iMessage chat conversation as if it was on your cell phone.
Since the COVID-19 pandemic has started, it has taken a toll on many of our people in our communities. I have seen firsthand the added stress and worry on our clients' faces as they come through our drive-through food pantries. These difficult times have drastically increased stress and anxiety. In response, Catholic Charities of South Carolina is providing a new ministry called Sister Hope. Sister Hope is a free chat service that provides encouragement and coping strategies on how to better deal with everyday stress and anxiety. Sister Hope, supported by chatbot technology, is 100% anonymous and confidential, available for free 24/7 and in 2 languages, English and Spanish. It is research-based and has proven to help over 13 million people worldwide.
It's just another way that we, as the Diocese of Charleston, through Catholic Charities, want to reach out and do what we can during this difficult time that people are experiencing such difficulties.
If you have any further questions, please visit our website at www.charitiessc.org.
All right. That was the first overview just to get you an idea of the technology that we'll be talking about more today. And it's also the video that's really used and being sent out to basically the whole database of people who may be in need for help. And this is a video that they'll see and think like, oh, it seems straightforward enough. It's a chat service. Other people see the value of it. Let me give it a try. And that's really one powerful way of breaking through the stigma and really getting people access to care, sometimes even for the first time ever. So in a nutshell, what I was already talking about earlier, um, there's really a couple of pointers where this technology can help the most. And a big part of that is stigma. Um, I myself um, have been a patient myself in the past, and that's actually the reason why I started this company. I'm the founder and CEO. And um, after I worked through my own struggles, I was able to be a peer support counselor of sorts. And I realized that I was able to help more and more people by actually sharing my story to overcome stigma and to repeat the lessons that I had learned. And this is really a big part, where I saw that so many people got access the first time. And even including a very dear friend of mine who even was on the verge of actual having suicidal thoughts, and she was um, committing self-harm, and yeah, was really going the wrong direction. And luckily she confided in me and I was able to share my story, and this way she got back on the right track. So that's why also I'm very grateful to be here today, because this is a topic that goes very dear to my heart. um, and I'm very proud to be able to share our progress to date. um, so next to overcoming stigma, what we always focus on as well as proactive outreach. So prevention comes in two ways: making sure that people know where to turn when they need help. But beyond that, it even helps more if you're able to reach out to people, to just lend a helping hand, to just check in with them. How are you feeling? Do you want to talk about any stress you've been experiencing lately? And we really see that this has huge success. So this ranges from um, perhaps text messages that you might already be sending to your people, where we can include a text message from Sister Hope saying, "Hey, just checking in how you're doing. Do you need a chat?" But it could also be an email. So like you're sending out emails now, it will be an email just introducing this service with a similar video as I showed at the start, and to just give people an idea of like, hey, if you are in need of help, or if you just want to chat or figure out if you might need help, just give it a try. And the last form is that we can also use social media, and that we've seen that in that way, like a lot of people spend time on social media, which sometimes is a healthy thing, connecting with friends and family. Sometimes is less healthy, that people feel unhappy because they see other people having fun, while they might not be in a good mood. And that's also a very good place where people can just opt in and see like, oh, hey, let me try this out and start a chat conversation. An important part is, as you can see of that text message conversation, is that it's just really convenient. It's really easy to start a chat message conversation just like you would text your family members or your friends. It's just a phone number that you can send a text message and you automatically get a text message back. Um, Very much so, as you see here on the right hand of the screen, um, with this conversation around anxiety, of just providing some self-help and providing some emotional support to make the person feel better. And this also allows it to be 24/7. So day in, day out, late at night, um, it's often harder to reach out for help to other people. The nice thing about this service is it's 24/7. You can always chat with it. It replies within 10 seconds, no matter what time of the day you reach out. And very important, whenever there's a crisis or it seems like someone needs more than just a text support, we can switch it over right away to a crisis support center. And this can be one of our call centers, or it can be the existing call center that you already have in place. And over the years, we've done this now for over 8 years. We first started out as a research firm, and then we transitioned into helping our partners and customers. And people are able to have 3 million different types of conversations and cover 800 topics. So ranging all the way from general anxiety to specifically anxiety around work, or anxiety around money issues, or anxiety because of COVID, or people feeling maybe down or depressed due to isolation because they have to stay at home. Um, all sorts of different topics. Here's a little preview of how it looks like if someone would be chatting and they say, well, actually, I would like to talk to a person. Um, it can be as simple as Sister Hope just providing an introduction to a counselor who takes over the conversation, or just providing a phone number. An alternative is to actually set up an appointment. So we also have an online appointment setting system that can be either for more longer term emotional support or therapy, or for ad hoc to talk about their crisis situation. An important thing I want to mention as well is that our crisis call center is AAS certified, American Association for Suicidology, and even last year won the award of AAS Best Trained Crisis Call Center. So this is just there as an extra support. If you already have your resources in place, you won't be able to use this. But if you have fear that you might be understaffed, or you saw extra increase in demand because of COVID, and more people need help, then we're always there and ready to help. Counselors are in all 50 states, and yeah, we can adjust this as we go, depending on how much support there is necessary. So a bit more around the technology platform, um, and yeah, kind of the general perception of the market on safety standards. So worldwide, this technology is used by a lot of people. And in total, there's over 35 customized versions of it. And we've been in the market now for over 10 years. And um, it ranges all the way from, for example, for John Hopkins, we have a version that really hones in on mental health support in combination with general practitioner practices in the workplace, to projects in Africa for young mothers with postpartum depression, to projects for Syrian refugees, um, even in their native language, so also in Arabic, um, and um, for example, with veterans or with United Way. And with United Way is a special one because there we added support around financial stress. So there's also like specific topics like that that can be addressed. And then, of course, we have our like Catholic faith-based emotional mental health support. And an important thing as well to realize is that there's both an English version available as well as a Spanish-speaking version available. So in total, we have over 19 million participants with paid access to the service. Some others that might surprise you that are on this slide are for example, ARP Foundation, um, people often ask me, "Oh, isn't this just something for younger folks?" Well, you'd be surprised. At ARP Foundation, they've actually, on purpose, created a version that is for seniors who are lonely and deal with social isolation. And um, they have relatively more time on their hands. So the fear initially was, oh no, it will be too much effort to quickly type messages. But actually, they just take more time to write their messages. And in that way, the system just slows down so that they feel like, oh yeah, I have the time to craft a nice message. Um, and in that way, there's even a voice option available to make that easier as well. One very important thing of what we do, as I mentioned before, our commercial offering, we started out as a research firm, and we've always stayed at the heart of what we do. More research to prove that it's effective and safe. So in this way, for example, with Rochester Institute of Technology, we really focused on the way the system handles suicide. So making sure we triage people on time, making sure we do screening to see how severe their suicidal issues are, and in this way, really making sure that the system is safe. Of course, next to that, because of our partners that we work with and our customers like John Hopkins and other big health systems, um, they always carry out very advanced screenings from a technology perspective with regards to security and with regards to privacy. So that's also something that's very important to us. And then the rest of these studies are really focused on the impact. Is it really helping people, and can we measure it? And the way we measure the impact is in a similar way as going into therapy. You usually start out with a questionnaire to see at what level your symptoms are at the start. Then you have a couple of sessions, and then we ask again um, what level the symptoms are. And if we see a decrease, then that's of course a positive thing because the symptoms are less bad. And in that way, we can really prove that we're helping people on a day-to-day basis. And then a final thing about this slide is that a lot of these research studies have been funded by National Institute of Mental Health or National Institute of Health, and all of them have an academic partner who's the primary researcher, and we are mainly the technology provider. So why a chatbot? So here is where I'll hand the floor over to James, who will really talk about the specifics of the landscape, so to say.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to be here with you this evening. My background, I'm the Executive Director for Catholic Charities of South Carolina. The video you saw earlier was the promotional video that we had put together in our initial offering of Sister Hope throughout South Carolina. And but to transition, also I should mention before getting the slides, I also oversee as Secretary of Social Ministry for the Diocese of Charleston, the Office of Family Life. And since really early 2019, the teenage suicide epidemic became a real critical pastoral issue for us within the Family Life Office, probably getting at least 3 or 4 calls a week from pastors, 126 different parishes throughout the state. So, this issue, both, yes, it's relevant to Catholic Charities and our desire to offer mental health support, but also with the Family Life Office, just with only so many staff, it was almost impossible to respond and scale a response. But really to find something that's truly preventative and truly can, respond in real time. Is not something simple to do. So those are some of the practical reasons why I'm here. And over the last few years, I've been working with Michael and his team, to really figure out how to make a specifically customized chatbot to offer within the Catholic Church. And so to move to the slides, as Michael mentioned at the very beginning, you have the fundamental orientation and situation that 1 in 4 people need mental health support, but only 1 in 50 have access to a trained professional. So that just gives a context for someone in my positions of overseeing family life and executive director of Catholic Charities. How are we going to, even if I had all the money in the world, I still would not be able to meet the need by paying for trained professionals, because there's not enough. And so we'll here to the next slide. So looking specifically within the context, the pastoral context of the church and the world today, the stigma issue is still very significant. Although there's research that shows that it's getting better for those who are younger, it's still there. And the reality is that young people, particularly those under 30, they're using this type of technology. So when you look at it from an encounter perspective, like really, truly trying to meet particularly younger individuals really where they are on a day-to-day basis. Research shows, Pew Research, that they're sending 300 or 400 texts a day. They're just as likely to send a text to someone in the same room as they are talk to them. And other research shows that they're 6 times more likely to engage with a chatbot for mental health support than any other form. Via email, telephonic, telehealth, it doesn't matter. They are much more likely to engage through this type of technology because this is how they're used to communicating on a daily basis. And this was one of the practical reasons I was really attracted to this. And to bring in kind of a high level perspective on the church, I don't want to make this too focused on the nuns and duns and the young, but there really is a crisis there, and I think most of you who are on this call realize that. And, looking at the presentation of Bishop Barron on this crisis in the church of just young people in general and their faith and their engagement with the culture, he highlighted 2 particular things that were pillars upon which he encouraged all the bishops to focus on in responding to this need. The first was get the young people involved in social ministry. So at the bottom there, you see Sister Hope does both. Well, that's one of the reasons I really loved this ministry, was because it is so easy to make someone a missionary. Once they have the Sister Hope phone number that they're chatting with and texting with, if they want to share this with a family member, a friend, they just need to hit, share contact, and they can share it with them. And now they're not just receiving this, but they're also empowered to share with others. And then obviously the last pillar Bishop Barron mentioned was creatively using social media. So Sister Hope really does both in a powerful, very creative way. And for the leadership of my diocese, these factors were very influential. To get more into the actual ministry itself, yes, it reduces symptoms, and you'll see Michael will get into that a little later on, the actual concrete data from the research that shows that. But for me, as a pastoral leader responsible for reaching out to those on the periphery, those who are sick and ill, with Catholic Charities, and then also with family life and all the pain and suffering in the family, the very unique preventative approach of this ministry, I have not seen anything quite like it. And yes, it lowers symptoms, but the last other thing there that you see at the bottom is it is proactive. And Michael mentioned that, but just to kind of describe that, so let's say you see that video that you looked at earlier. You're like, you know what, I'll text this number and try it out. And you text back and forth a little bit and you're like, okay, most people think it's pretty cool. That's the general feedback that I get, is that this is very cool. But what's neat about it is that whatever conversation you have, which is totally confidential, maybe 10 days, 2 weeks go by, Sister Hope will reach out to you and say, hey, how you doing? And then you'll have a little back and forth, and then, Sister Hope will ask, did you put into practice any things we talked about? So, it just does a lot of random check-ins to see how you are. And that's also powerful and unique too. And, so these are just some of the background for me that really attracted me to this, years ago. And then obviously we do have other Catholic clients, Archdiocese of New York, et cetera, that were, implementing this before we brought it here to South Carolina. But, those are some of the main reasons that we decided to do it here. And, so I've mentioned some of these clients, to get into kind of what we've done here in South Carolina, that's really what I want to share with you today. We launched this in April. You saw the video from when we, really it was probably late April. With COVID going on and 17 of my ministries had to shut down because of COVID. We could only keep open the food pantries and one other ministry, which was very limited. And then, that's why this became a really great opportunity. And, in the first 6 months, which you can see in the slide here, that helpfulness rating has gone up. It's gone up to 86, just over 86%. So, we're offering this to the general public. This is not just to the church. This is to the general public, many of which, don't know anything about the Catholic Church, et cetera. So this helpfulness rating is really quite impressive, actually. But the main thing is that the next few slides here. At the 6-month mark, it had a performed equivalent of 2,600 hours of counseling. Now, in the state of South Carolina, it is relatively large, 5 hours across at one point. I've got offices in 8 to 10 different places, depending on the ministries. To try to scale just a traditional, conventional mental health program, my predecessor looked at this in great depth, spent a lot of time researching. It would have cost probably $1.5 million to $2 million just to start. And that's just for the facilities and the personnel and all of that. And you can see here that within the first 6 months of launching this, and we were very limited by COVID. We could only contact via email. We had a whole promotional campaign with flyers, at the parish level to distribute and put up posters, et cetera. We didn't get to do that, but just with email, we were able to engage initially in the first few days a few hundred participants in the ministry, and it slowly has increased ever since, up to 1,000 participants now. But it has been many thousands because people get on, they use the stroke for a bit. It's meant to be preventative. It helps them out. And then, they fall off, and then they'll maybe re-engage, a month or two later. So it's not a constant number because it is meant to help train people through psychological education so that they can become self-reliant, right? But I guess the third bullet point here is pretty critical for this webinar series. We right away saw, 5 to 7 suicidal ideations soon as we offered this. And, we immediately, integrated the real-time suicide intervention because, we weren't sure when we first launched it, and it was right away. And so, honestly, for the cost that we have to pay, it is a complete no-brainer. So going to, my board to say, I need $50 to make an intervention to save someone's life, that's not hard to sell. And that's something we just felt we absolutely had to do. And when you look, because of X2AI and their large network of participants and users and clients worldwide, they're able to offer really great rates for those kind of very niche services. And then the last metric here is the potential referrals. So what that means is that every month, Sister Hope engages with individuals, and sometimes, like Michael said, things come up that are beyond a chat conversation. Now, we're in the process now of adding, that connection to real client services. But what we know for sure is that at least 65 times a month, Sister Hope is telling people, this is a serious issue, and really encouraging the individual to seek help. And, of that 65, if we were to offer real help, it would probably be 5 to 6 referrals a month, which, if you want to build a mental health program with real counselors, it's great to know exactly what your demand is at the very beginning and on an ongoing basis. So yes, it's available both in Spanish and English. And, that's been critical here in South Carolina. We are a missionary diocese and definitely growing with Hispanic populations and communities. So, that's been a great value add for us. And, so in summary, when you scale out the amount of service that Sister Hope is providing for the year, we're gradually increasing every month. Sister Hope will probably accomplish about 7,500 hours of counseling the first year. That's going to be over $500,000 worth of traditional counseling. So it's not about the money, but frankly, as executive director of Catholic Charities, in a very tight budget environment right now with COVID and fundraising being very challenging, this is such a wonderful response to COVID because there's so many people in the culture experiencing just mild anxiety, mild stress at levels they never had before. Just came out 2 days ago that 1 in 6 Americans over the last year for the first time reached out for mental health services since COVID started. So, you know, there's definitely a growing need. And with the resurgence now, you know, we're really happy to be able to offer this. And we've seen just a gradual increase in the need for the service. So it's been a great collaboration to work with Michael and his team. And, you know, I just really have only had a positive experience. So I'm gonna turn back to Michael now to talk more about the service. And I would just add in closing that you see this little icon of a nun now. If you just decide to offer it like we do through Facebook, we do use that icon. If you decide, you know, my bishop wanted to offer it primarily in the parishes first, and as we look to offer it more and more oriented towards the public, you know, we may call it Hope, we may call it, we may use more of a secular icon there. That's all at the discretion of the client. You know, that Sister Hope can be tailored in certain ways. But the important thing in closing is that this is faithful to, you know, basically the Catholic approach for both ministry and the human person. So I'll turn it over to Michael. Thanks. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much for covering that part of the presentation and really speaking to how your implementation has been thus far. And this is the next slide is looking at a different case study, because it really, like as James said, like it depends on people's budget. It depends on also how many people there are to help. So this is an implementation with a somewhat bigger budget and especially like a bigger population of people who need help. And what we saw here was within the first 2 months, we launched this. We actually launched this on National Suicide Prevention Day. And within 2 months, we saw that 18,000 people got mental health support through us. Just because initially, because we launched it around such a prominent day, we got a lot of influx of people using it. But afterwards, we made sure to continually promote it on social media. And also, we just see that so many people refer to other people. Like James mentioned, it's so easy to just share a phone number, and it's so easy to just maybe share the link to it, and that just we saw it really growing exponentially. And yeah, the numbers just become staggering in this way. It's hard to keep up. Like 1 million messages exchanged. So you'd have to think about like how many messages you usually exchange when you're chatting with someone, with a friend. Maybe like you're helping the friend like think through a certain problem. Well, that might be something like 10 or 20 messages. So this is many times more that amount. And what we also in particular looked at is in specific the topic of suicide. So how many people talked about suicide and how long did they talk about suicide? This was especially relevant because it was launched during National Suicide Day, and also because the donor that put the funding together for this project specifically asked us about like the goal was basically to get more people to talk about suicide, whether that was their own suicide or experiences with suicide with other people, just to break through the stigma, and also just to really make sure that those who should be getting access to support will get access. So that was really kind of their success metric that they asked us to track. Now, another key point is the triage. So we've talked today a bit about different call centers we work with, and even call centers like on days like National Suicide Day, like get overwhelmed. Like there's just more and more people calling in, and it's just hard to keep up. And then the wait times go up, and that's very stressful for the counselors themselves as well. So that's something where where it really helps that we have our chatbot in place, and that we can make sure that preemptively we can already help doing some triage, already figure out how urgent different cases are. So the most urgent cases get sent to the call center right away, and the less urgent cases can use some more self-help first, before switching over to the call center. And then for the person themselves, it's a better experience because they don't need to wait, because they basically have a continuous flow of chatting and then someone takes over. Um, and then the last piece, the suicide prevention piece, um, by using the statistics on from the Suicide Foundation on how many suicides attempts actually lead to a successful suicide, as they call it. Um, we also look at our data in that way to calculate, okay, so how many of these suicide attempts that we prevented would have actually resulted in the loss of a life. And this number was actually 20 people. So we're very proud that we were able to prevent that from happening. And um, another part of this is next to the very critical situations for preventing suicide, um, to just look at the resources we can provide. Because a lot of organizations already have a lot of resources in place. It's just hard for people to find them. It might be hard to find it on the website, or it might be because of COVID that normally it would have been distributed in person, but now it's not. So that's really also something we measure, that we see like, okay, how many people did we give resources, and how many times? Because often, believe it or not, people may forget where to find the resource. So they might need a little reminder or a little nudge. This is something that came up in one of our recent conversations with another Catholic organization, is the desire to have some sort of a real-time dashboard. Um, so we always have this in place. It just depends on um, how much involved the organization wants to be. It can be completely turnkey, where the only responsibility is spreading the phone number and letting people know about it. Or you could go as in depth as asking for detailed data. So one way, as I mentioned at the start, we started as a research firm, and one way we measure the effectiveness is to use the PHQ-9. This is the gold standard in the field of clinical psychology to look at depression symptoms. We measure the level of symptoms at T1, so time 1, and then a few weeks later at time 2, and then we see this steep decline in symptoms. And this is a nice graph to show that decline, but we can actually give the exact data points. And often these data points are used for actually getting grant funding, or is used as a feedback loop to the funder or the donor, to show them, look, this is the real impact that's made. And one other part is that we can show at an aggregate summary level what topics are being discussed. And this is really useful also from like a pastoral viewpoint, where you would not always expect issues that are popping up. So when COVID started, we expected that there might be more loneliness, and there might be more grief and loss. But one thing we didn't expect, and a lot of our partners didn't expect, was that the amount of domestic violence increased, because people are more at home. Tensions rise, and in this way, to see this at a high level, it allows the organization to proactively approach the people and talk about these topics, and in that way hopefully prevent some of the potential damage done. And the last form is kind of an overview dashboard, as the numbers we presented earlier. It's available 24/7, gets updated all the time. Number of people chatting, number of messages, and like that, you'll always know what your impact is. So there's really two scenarios. One is to use this technology and the program that we offer to set up a completely new program, so really from the ground up. Um, the benefit is that you get to rely on the proven effectiveness of all the research we did, and also that you get to really customize it into which groups do you want to provide this to, How many people do you want to help? Do you want to use part of your own resources or not? Um, and that way, it really allows you to scale up the level of support. So you can really start off, show a lot of impact, and then afterwards, hopefully, there will be more budget to make such impact the year following. The second scenario is to work with your existing mental health program. Um, Often, what really kind of hurts me on the inside is when there are a lot of benefits available, but nobody is using it, or it's hard to get people to use it. And this is a key point where we help because we proactively reach out to people and then keep reminding them of the different resources that are in place. Here's a quick overview of how much you could expect on the reduction in symptoms. Um, and also just to look at kind of the satisfaction rate and the engagement. So as James mentioned, like people sometimes start using it and then they are self-reliant. Another group of people, about 25%, kind of uses it on and off all year round. Because kind of all year round they're just working on more resilience. So to even prevent getting a fallback later on and really relying on it heavily again for a couple of weeks. Now here's our full overview of all the research studies we've published, all academic papers, peer-reviewed. They're available on our website, but I'm also happy to send them over. Quick snapshot of our leadership. Two people I'll highlight here. Amanda George, she's our product architect. So she's been really involved with like the Young Catholic Professionals Organization, and she used to work at the Archdiocese in San Francisco. And to James' point about Bishop Barron's presentation, she really is able to make that conversion happen of connecting young people and re-engaging them and making sure it's a really inclusive offering. And then someone else to point out would be Tim Connors. He's part of the USCCB Lay National Advisory Board, and he's also on the board of the Catholic Charities in San Francisco. And he's one of our original funders. So also before we launched this Catholic offering, he was also already one of our funders. And yeah, he's been a great source of support. Without further ado, that's the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for your time, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Michael and James. Really appreciate you guys spending the time to talk to us about Sister Hope. What a wonderful service to provide for people who are really in need, and access right away, quick and easy access for you know, those who are tech savvy and those who are able to really you know, connect. And so thank you so much for that. And so participants, if you have any questions or any comments you'd like to share, feel free to share those in the chat box below. James, I have one question for you. So talking about implementation, and as you've seen it in South Carolina, how have you seen like a change in the mental health in your diocese?
Yeah, great question. Well, when we launched this, we really didn't have a mental health program. So I probably should give that background. My predecessor was really looking, to build a center, et cetera, and we just didn't have the funding. What I would say is, we have a lot of positive feedback. So in addition to the service being anonymous, we do have an info email that we put out there on the website, and we have gotten a tremendous amount of positive feedback, just from the people in the pews, to be honest with you. And also pastors, one of the reasons why we've gotten their support is, they don't have time. And many of them say, we're not trained and we don't have time to do counseling, and I barely have time to do confessions, and that's what I have to focus on. But they don't, as they share, they don't want to turn people away. So this, we have these little business cards that has Sister Hope on it and a number. And so, they can at least give that to individuals, couples, or individuals otherwise that, they just don't have the time to do counseling, or they don't have the training, and competence to do it. So it's been, I would just say, it's been more of a grassroots impact, and that's really where we've gotten the feedback. Obviously on the opposite side, we have a lot of very concrete data on that exact same type of dashboard. And I showed you, we know exactly how many people are using it. We don't know who they are, but we know the topics we're talking about. And, we definitely know how many potential suicides we're intervening on. So hopefully that does that help to answer the question, Father?
Yeah, no, that does. And thank you very much. I appreciate that. Because I think it's always, when implementing a program like this, getting some of that real-time information, as Michael was sharing about just the drop in symptomology and the drop in anxiety and depression among participants is a wonderful statistic, which just goes to show you how wonderful of a program this is to really be able to reach out to people. One of the questions from one of our attendees, what is the youngest age that somebody can use this service?
Yeah, it's a good question with a nuanced answer. So the easy answer is anyone over 18, they can use it themselves without any further need of specific arrangements. Under 18, there are different rules that vary per state on permission from parents or legal guardians. So in that way, we evaluate it on a state-by-state basis, and we look at what kind of permission provision support we need to put in place, as the technical term is called. And we also work together with CHADIS, which is an electronic health record system. They have about 1 million patients who they help. And this was also really critical, where they've figured out different flows and figured out what's the least effort for the parents to give permission, and in order then for the children to get access in an easy way.
Yeah, and to add to that, here in South Carolina, we're gradually moving to offer this in the schools, and so we piloted that at one high school where we approached the administration of the school, and they approved it, and then they're used to getting consent forms for all kinds of things, and so we let them facilitate that because they know how to do it. Now, obviously, we make sure the form's compliant with X2AI, but that's how we've started to offer that to younger populations.
Wonderful. And then the counselors that, obviously the Sister Hope is a free service for anybody who participates in it. But then when they get referred to a counselor or to a mental health provider, then I assume that it kind of goes under the standard issue of insurance and those kinds of things.
Yeah. Well, I'll answer South Carolina. Mike will give you the much broader global perspective. But yes, we as an agency do pay for the chat service, and then the individual participant doesn't pay anything. When I say we are looking to add that connect to real counselors, obviously I could have added that right away for those with insurance, but I'm looking to add it for those who don't, because that's the mission of charities, frankly.
Yeah.
Michael's frankly the best option because of the scale of clients they have. They can offer a tremendous competitive rate on an hourly basis. So yes, there is options that it can facilitate asking questions and verifying insurance, and then it can be, insurance can be used, but also, it's probably the most economical thing that I've seen by far if you want to provide that type of service to those who don't have insurance. And that's obviously a unique concern of Catholic Charities, but we have a large tent community population. There's 110 communities in one county in upstate, and so there's thousands of individuals that are living like that. So we wanted to be able to reach them on the periphery, and this was the only thing we found that could do that. At least offer them something. But I'll let Michael answer the question broadly.
Yeah, and on a larger scale, there is the option of having insurance pay for it, and then there's two ways to approach it. We can take care of the billing and submitting the bill, etc. So it's like completely for free. The person who is in need doesn't need to do anything. The other alternative is that they get a regular invoice that they would be able themselves to send to the insurance. Um, so that's usually up to the preference of the person who is in need of help. And then one other alternative that happens every so often is that we also have a foundation ourselves, and we often get donations to our foundation for a specific goal. And there's often the goal of providing therapy sessions. And if that's the case, then we can say, oh, we actually have some earmarked funds available. If you want, we can provide anyone who chats with Sister Hope um, at least 2 free sessions before they would have to pick up the bill themselves.
Yeah, and Michael, just to verify that that's still all anonymous,
Yeah.
despite verification of insurance or frankly anything that goes through the chatbot. It's all completely and utterly anonymous. So, and that's shared right up front, and then the privacy policy of X2AI is shared in the first minute or two, and then obviously it's transparent, as you saw in the pictures earlier. It tells participants immediately, this is a chatbot, but everything that is shared by the chatbot is written by clinical psychologists that have been double vetted by other clinical psychologists. So, there's a lot of all those ethical concerns are all addressed up front.
Wow, you guys have really thought about everything. So that's quite a operation that you presented with us today. It's so wonderful to see this safe space for people to go to who are in need, and Catholic Charities in South Carolina to offer that is such a wonderful, it speaks to the mission of the church, and it speaks to the mission of Catholic Charities. And I think it speaks to the mission of NCPD, constantly trying to reach out to all those on the peripheries, as St. Francis always calls, Pope Francis, sorry. it's the Franciscan in me. As Pope Francis says, always reaching out to those in the peripheries. And I think this is a great way of using, like you said, James Bishop Barron's, connecting to social media, because I can admit to myself, I'm never more than 5 feet away from my phone. And if I'm not, I have a watch that tells me that the phone has been disconnected from my watch. So I'm always in constant contact with my phone. And so many people are, especially in this, highly digital age, and all that kind of thing. It's just such a huge service to offer. One other question for a diocese, I guess, Michael, this is more on your end. For a diocese, how is the fee kind of determined for the service? If a diocese or Catholic Charities or an organization wants to participate in Sister Hope, because I know you said there's different levels, but how is that kind of determined, and what does that look like?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I'm happy that you just spoke about your mission, and in that way, like to share as well. Like, our mission is to really make sure that we're able to provide affordable, quality mental health support, regardless of income or location. So what we do is we work with the organization to have a conversation. That's always the first part. Is a conversation of who do you want to help, how many people do you want to help. For example, like James mentioned, like initially they rolled it out for a smaller population, and then they said like, oh, actually, now we have more budget, we can actually roll this out for anyone in the state. And that really speaks to that we always make sure that the pricing makes sense with the budget of the size of the organization and the amount of people you want to reach.
Okay. Thank you very much. And once again, thank you guys so much for being with us, for all of you who are watching live with us today, and those who will be watching later at another time. I thank you for joining us for our webinar series on suicide awareness and prevention. This is offered to you by NCPD, National Catholic Partnership on Disability. And we'll be having another webinar series once again the second Monday, February 8th, where Maria Alvarono will be talking to us. She's a emergency room nurse in southern New Jersey, and she's going to be talking to us about Together in Combat with the Holy Spirit and finding the root cause of suicide. She works specifically in the emergency room and does a lot of work with the power of prayer and the power of the gifts of the Holy Spirit. So Michael and James, thank you again so much for being with us tonight. And I hope everybody stays safe and stays blessed. And if you have any questions or concerns, please feel to reach out to NCPD and we can help field those questions. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us. God bless.